The number 40 billion is staggering when you hear it in the context of artificial intelligence. It is a figure that suggests a fundamental change in how the technology industry operates. When Google reportedly plans to invest this sum in Anthropic, it is not just a financial transaction. It is a signal that the rules of the game have shifted from open experimentation to closed consolidation. For years, the narrative around large language models was built on the promise of open weights and shared research. But a deal of this magnitude points to a different future where infrastructure and capital become the primary gatekeepers of innovation. Here is the thing about this specific investment structure. It is not purely cash. The reports indicate a hybrid model where a significant portion of the value comes in the form of compute credits. This distinction is critical because it changes the nature of the partnership. In the past, money was the only currency that mattered for building AI models. Today, access to massive cloud infrastructure is the scarcer resource. By offering compute credits, Google is leveraging its own cloud dominance as a strategic asset. This means the partnership is less about buying a company and more about securing a dedicated lane on the highway of digital infrastructure. It is a way to lock in a competitor while simultaneously deepening their reliance on Google's ecosystem. Now consider the broader context of the arms race. For the last few years, the relationship between Google and Anthropic has been defined by intense competition. Both companies have been racing to release the most capable models, often at the expense of transparency. This deal represents a de-escalation of that conflict. It suggests that the major players have realized that endless competition is costly for everyone involved. Instead of trying to destroy each other, they are moving toward a model of coexistence. This is a move toward market consolidation where the biggest players agree to share the infrastructure rather than fighting for total dominance. It is a pragmatic acknowledgement that the cost of building these systems is becoming too high for any single entity to sustain alone. This shift has profound implications for the open-source movement. For a long time, open-source models were seen as the path to democratizing AI. They allowed smaller teams to build on top of existing work without needing billions of dollars. But as the technology matures, the barrier to entry is rising. The new reality is that developing top-tier models requires not just code, but access to thousands of specialized processors running for weeks at a time. When a giant like Google decides to invest heavily in a specific closed system, it signals that the most valuable models will likely remain behind paywalls. This effectively raises the ceiling for new competitors. If you cannot match the combined capital and infrastructure scale of the incumbents, you simply cannot compete at the highest level. For enterprise adoption, this shift creates a different set of incentives. Companies that are looking to integrate AI into their workflows are increasingly prioritizing stability and support over experimental openness. A partnership of this scale offers a guarantee of longevity. If you are a bank or a hospital, you need to know that the AI vendor will be around for the next decade. You do not want to build your operations on a model that might disappear if the startup runs out of funding. A deal that secures the future of the model through massive infrastructure backing provides that certainty. It moves the conversation from whether the technology works to whether the vendor will be there to maintain it. This security is worth a premium, and it explains why enterprises are increasingly drawn to these closed, well-backed systems. Think of it like the early days of the internet. In the beginning, anyone could set up a server and try to build a service. Over time, the complexity grew, and the major platforms like Amazon Web Services took over the heavy lifting. Companies stopped trying to build their own data centers and started renting capacity. The same dynamic is happening with AI. The specialized hardware required to train and run these models is becoming too expensive for most organizations to own. By tying the model development to the cloud infrastructure, the industry is ensuring that the development happens on the cloud. This creates a feedback loop where the cloud provider becomes the gatekeeper of the intelligence itself. There is also a strategic element regarding the transition to artificial general intelligence. Some analysts suggest that this investment is a hedge against the risks of AGI. By securing a partnership with a leading research team like Anthropic, Google is ensuring it has a direct line to the most advanced thinking in the field. This reduces the risk of being left behind in the race for AGI. It is a way of saying that while they compete in the consumer market, they are also collaborating on the foundational research that will define the next decade. This blurs the line between competitor and partner in a way that was not possible a few years ago. The impact on the market is already visible in the pricing and availability of these models. As the major players consolidate, the variety of options for developers may decrease. Instead of choosing from a dozen different open models, the market may narrow down to a few dominant closed systems. This could lead to higher costs for developers who rely on these models for their products. It also concentrates power in the hands of a few cloud providers. If you want to build the next generation of AI applications, you are likely building them on a specific platform that has the compute to run them. This centralization changes the landscape of innovation from a distributed network of ideas to a few centralized hubs. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.